What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. We've got an interesting video for you guys today. Something I've actually joked a lot about on the channel is how more of us need to go get our CDL and drive trucks because Uber's starting to become really not anything close to what we all signed up for. So in today's video, I'm actually going to go over some of the things you could do as we all start looking forward. Probably the #1 email I've seen from the viewers of this channel is just not knowing what to do next. You know, most people I've talked to that have Ubered or driven Lyft for a long time are pretty much at the tipping point of being like, hey, I'm completely done now. I'm sick of the lies. I'm sick of the cuts. Let's move on. So I put together a quick video on, you know, if you wanted to go that route, I always joked about it, but maybe some of you do. So we'll talk about that, as well as I looked up a few other potential opportunities that I think some of you drivers may be interested in. Before we jump into this video though, we did just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Solo. Solo is the best way for those of you that are still driving to make more money while you drive. It gets you guaranteed pay, better earnings all around. The app is packed full of features, and you get $10 just for signing up by using our link that's in the description below. So check that out. Let's dive in. So I've got a good buddy that drives trucks. He's always loved it. I've always thought it wasn't for me, only because I am pretty much as ADD as it gets. And the one thing that always worked for me with Uber is it's just a lot of things changing up. New passengers, new rides. Longer drives are tougher for me, only because I'm like, okay, I know I have 8 hours ahead of me. It's harder for me to like zone out and not think about the time. But when I'm giving quicker rides, new conversations, new people, new stories, new environments, it tends to go quicker. But for my friend, he loves it. And he's been doing this pretty much since he was 21. I think you can technically start when you're 18. I'll go over that though. I have a lot of stuff written down for this, but he loves it. He swears by it. And he's always said, you know, it's really not that hard of a job for the money you can make. So basically, obviously step one is to get your CDL. And that's the joke that I always make, is we need to go get our CDLs and, you know, give a big middle finger to Uber because this company's starting to suck. Actually, not starting to, really does kind of just suck at this point. Okay, so if you are 18, you can only drive in one state, it looks like. If you want to drive across multiple state lines, which I'm assuming is better pay, you have to be 21 or older. So you have to get a valid CDL. You can do that through the military. But what I also was seeing online is most of these companies will actually pay for your training. So obviously there's some caveat to that, you know. I doubt they're technically just paying, but it sounds like these programs are pretty good. And I didn't look into these too much, but it looks like, you know, you can essentially get trained, get paid your way through it, and then obviously you'd have to stay with that company for probably X amount of contract years, that being the caveat. So it looks like you have to take then, after your CDL, some type of 4-week additional training program. I think that's going to vary by the company and what they want. And then obviously you have to pass the Department of Transportation physical, you have to obtain a medical card, and you have to pass a drug test. Now the cool thing about this is truck driving jobs, from what I've heard, are always in very high demand. It's, you know, so essential to our supply chain and obviously getting food across the nation and everything else, that it's always going to be a job that's pretty sought after, or not sought after, in need of new drivers. So, you know, obviously it's not glamorous necessarily, in the sense that, you know, you might be away from home for good amounts of time. But what I do know, and I don't know the exact numbers on this, is overall, like, you're not talking a super labor intensive job from the perspective of you're not going to be working 12-hour days. You know, and again, I don't know the exact law here, but I'm guessing that it's probably 8-hour days. And then, you know, you got to take a nap in the bunker for the next 6 to 8 hours before you can hit the road again. So all in all, you know, I haven't done it, so I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's a easy job, and you know, I mean, no, work is work. You know, to me, it's like no work is really easy. There's some jobs that are maybe a little bit easier to manage than others. Obviously, if you're working retail, you know, you don't have a lot of risk, and you know, I guess it's easy, probably just boring, but you're also not making good money. So with this, I mean, you've got to be pretty attentive to the road on a really a whole new level of even driving a car. So on top of that, they say that it really only takes a couple of years, depending on the situation and the state you're in, to where you're making at least 6 figures a year. But even on the way up, you're probably making more than you make for Uber or Lyft. Like, let's be honest. Like, even if you're making, I mean, this is where I just don't trust drivers, because I talk to Uber drivers all the time. Like, hey, you know, forgive me, this is too forward, and I don't tell them that I've driven before, but how much do you make a year? And they'll tell me they make 80, 90K, and I'm sitting there like, absolute BS. Like, no, you don't. And like, your take home after gas, after maintenance, after all that garbage is not 80K. Like, I just don't believe that. And I've seen the videos from drivers that break down how they did. I still don't believe it. And even if you do, I don't believe it's worth the hours you had to work to maintain that. Now, maybe there's certain markets. So I've driven in Phoenix, Nashville, Charlotte, and a couple of other cities. I've moved a lot in my life. I've never come close. Now, granted, I only did full-time for about 3 of those years. I didn't come close to making 80K. So on top of it, like, what you guys really got to consider is, I know everyone's like, oh, but I don't want to give up my flexibility. You don't really have flexibility as a full-time Uber driver. You get to kind of decide, like, obviously, if you're feeling sick, you don't have to call in. You don't have a boss. Is that really worth it for what you've put up with over the last, you know, however long you've been doing this? See, I don't think it is. So something like this, to me, is a really good option for a lot of people to pivot to if they're really looking to stay in transportation. Now, on top of that, and I didn't look into this as much, but there's a huge demand for pilots right now. And they're running similar programs where you can actually get your flight school paid for. I come from a family of pilots, American Airlines, JetBlue, pretty much anything in the airline industry. And they've all told me I should go try to be a pilot right now, because you're getting your training covered. Some way, shape, or form, you're paying that back. But then once you're in, it's a great, great career. You know, you might be gone for 3 days, but then you're home for 4, not working. So that's another thing that I think everybody should look into. Now, if you're not looking for like as serious of like, you're like, hey, I'm not looking for like a career like that, because these are definitely career jobs. The other thing, if you're looking for more just chill work, we'll say, I don't even know if I'd call it chill, but there's a plethora of work from home jobs right now that'll pay 20 to 25 an hour. And you're like, well, that's not the greatest money. Well, if you're not paying gas, not driving your car, not, you know, you're doing it from the comfort of your home, that might actually be something that's legitimately worth looking into. So I don't like the idea myself of being like a customer service agent, but if I had nothing else to fall back on, if I didn't have a business, and if I had to go and just start from scratch, I'm not positive it would be Uber unless I was doing sales or trying to start something. But if I was just looking to make money, I'm probably taking the customer service job over Uber, if it's just purely about money. Now, like I said, if I get my own thing going, if it's a sales thing or something where I need the networking, I'm doing Uber. Because even if I make 15 an hour with Uber, I'll turn those hours into better money just from pure networking. If you guys get my drift. So the last thing I'll say, and then I want to end this video, is kind of on that last note. If you are looking for a next leap, if one of your better skills as an Uber driver was always getting tipped from being like a conversationalist, really being able to talk to people, and if you think sales is something you could do, you should look into sales, some commission-only job where you still maintain that flexibility and freedom you want, and just tell your boss that you're gonna start by just pushing the product or the service in Uber. and you don't know how often you'll generate sales, but just while you get your feet wet, you want to be able to pay your bills and make sure that you can, do this sales position long term. That's what I did, and that was how I first got out of the place of not needing to drive Uber full time. I was selling solar, and I was able to get my first couple of deals done, which pays very well, just from my car. And then eventually I stopped needing to do it as much. Then eventually I started a business, and then I got to a point where I could really just do Uber purely when I wanted, for fun, for networking purposes, just for, an extra $200 to go buy some new video games or something that I don't almost feel right paying for out of the money I make. I'm like weird like that. But I like Uber now for like the extra money, but I really just don't even like it now because I can't stand what this company does. But anyways, that's what I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Make sure you check out Solo in the description. Get that free $10 just for signing up and access to guaranteed pay. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments, or any other gigs or side gigs that you think a lot of us could pivot to. I know there's a lot of drivers that are emailing into us right now that are asking like, hey, what do we do next? Clearly this isn't getting better. What do we do next? So anyways, let us know in the comments. Thanks again, guys. Have a great week, and I will talk to you guys soon.